Gun, Germs, and Steel. I feel like this book. I feel like this book should be called Guns, Germs, and Food because he talked about food way more than he talked about steel. Like steel wasn't even a major proponent in this book, but that's fine where it's at. But I think we could just define the three parts on the screen right here: guns, germs, and steel, and their importance in human societies, or their importance throughout history, I should say. So the guns are important because you can take over land. You can take over land if you have guns, especially if the opponent doesn't have guns. And the example, or what he showed, was the Spaniards, and when the Spaniards came and killed the Native Americans, because the Native Americans didn't have guns, they had clubs. And if you have a gun and someone else has pretty much a bat, you're pretty much gonna win the fight. So they won that battle. They conquered that whatever tribe that of the Native Americans that they killed. And now germs. Now germs. This is not necessarily advantageous. Well, it is. There are some advantages to having plagues around you, but mostly plagues. When I think of plagues, we're not gonna go off the book with this one, but I think of what happened in Rome, simply because when people die of plagues, pretty much, or sickness, like when the emperors die of sickness, because that's what pretty much what happens. Also, the common people die, but a few common people dying, pretty much no one cares about that in history. It's all about the great people. So when someone great dies, that leads to mostly civil war, especially if the heir also dies, like the heir to the throne. And with that, like I said, it'll cause civil war because who wants to lead next? Pretty much, it's pretty much up in the air. Who wants to lead next? Whoever wants to lead, come in. And that's pretty much what happened with Rome and the three emperors. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, it was 176 AD. If I remember the exact date. We're basically not three emperors, but there were three top generals, and that was a civil war in Rome because all the wars. I'm sorry, not the wars. All the armies of the three generals, they had a big war. Just to see whose general was the best, and that pretty much led to downfalls. But also, germs can, like I said, they could be advantageous. Like if there are germs around you, and you go to a new area, and you're already like immune to the germs, and you go to a new area, then there's a chance that the people that were already there, and you don't even have to fight them, just be around them, and the germs will infect them, and they'll get sick. So hey, you can take charge just like that, just of being around someone, and and you're sick already. I suppose you would have to be, but you're immune to the sickness. And steel. Now, the reason I said that steel wasn't a big proponent in this book is because he didn't necessarily talk about it a lot. He did talk about like some agricultural stuff, and with food. I think it should just be food, honestly, because that was, like I said, that was a huge part of the book. I think at least 1/3 of the book was talking about food, maybe even one half of the book, honestly. But food. Now, food was important because there were two types of people back then, or at least two main types. I'm pretty sure there was other subcategories, but the two main types of people were hunters and gatherers and farmers. And the farmers, they lived, well, not necessarily farmers, but like town people. And the town people, they lived sedentary lifestyles, so they were usually sitting down all day. And that, while it's kind of shamed on now, that's great back then. You don't have to eat. You don't have to eat as much versus these hunters and gatherers that's out there hunting for and gathering for hours a day, and they might not always get the food. Versus agricultural things, you'll pretty much know you'll get the food unless there's bad weather, or the plants get infected, or someone steals your crops, or a lot of other things go wrong. So it was pretty much always gonna go wrong. Either way, there was a chance to go wrong. But the agricultural things, it was just more safe because in the long term, especially if you have good land and you own it, like there's a good chance like you're pretty much gonna be set for your life. All you have to do is go out on the farm, every day and and watch after your stuff. But guns, germs, and steel. And the other, I feel like the other important part of this book was his talk on language. And I really was interested in this stuff, like how did the first language become created? And actually, I have a book on this, and I'll probably be reading that in a little bit. But language plays an important part throughout history because I feel like this is just pretty obvious stuff. Like with two people in different languages, they can't communicate. But also two people with the same language, they still might not be able to communicate simply because of their emotions towards each other. Like they just don't want to communicate. So like there really has to be, I don't want to say peace, but there has to be some sort of cooperation for empires to rise. And I think I really like studying these empires and kind of just like what that says there, human societies. I really enjoy reading these types of books. Also, I really enjoy reading those neuroscience books. So I think those are really my top two favorite things to read. I like this history thing, and I like that neuroscience. So it's good that I'm finding these things, and obviously you can find your thing too. But for now, this is just guns, germs, and food.